In this week's episode of Workshopping Humanity, we are discussing the Thunderbolts. A lot of the most recent Marvel movies have not been too thematically strong, but Thunderbolts is actually about something, specifically mental health, and how the mental health of these characters is important and matters, and how seeing these characters struggle with their own mental health is going to help other people personify their own struggles with mental health. When this podcast episode is published, the Cannes Film Festival has already happened, but at the time of recording, it had not happened yet. So you'll hear Jared and I discuss about what our predictions for what will pop off at the Cannes Film Festival will be. This is an episode of Workshopping Humanity. Welcome to Workshopping Humanity, a place where we like to analyze media and dissect its cultural impact within our society. That's a lot of buzzwords to say that we like to talk about movies and other things sometimes. And we are back today to talk about Thunderbolts, which is the newest Marvel movie. And I think it is very nice and refreshing that we can actually talk about the emotional substance of a movie made by Marvel. It's been a little bit. So here we got the co-host, Jared. Say hello, Jared.
Hello, everyone.
And before we get started, Jared and I kind of wanted to discuss just some things are going on within the world of pop culture. A big thing is the Cannes Film Festival. The Cannes Film Festival is starting this week. We have a friend, Maddie, who is there right now, covering it on his page, The Film Ball. So I'll link that down. You should follow that because that's going to be good content for sure.
His boots are on the ground as we speak, as of this recording.
I would be there if they didn't reject me. Womp womp.
Womp womp.
Actually, I don't even know if I'd be there if they did accept me because that's a lot of money. But you know what? We're here now, and we're going to be talking about Cannes. Jared, what are some of your most anticipated titles for this year's Cannes?
So the first one, if you
I know where you're going here.
If you know, you know. Oliver Hermanus's The History of Sound. It's my most anticipated of the year. We got some first looks. Thank you. Some photos. It's Paul Mescal, Josh O'Connor coming off our two kind of biggest stars coming off projects like Challengers and Gladiator 2, Normal People, After Sun, coming together to tell this love story. It's maybe not a musical in like a Mamma Mia sense, but kind of a story about music and recording lives of countrymen that I think is going to be really, really good. I feel so proud about this because I knew last year the director said he was hoping for a Cannes premiere, and he premiered some of his past movies there. There were some doubts, but now it is in competition, which is a pretty big deal for this movie. So I'm very excited for this to see where this goes. Mumbai has it, and I do think if it gets really good reviews, it could have a Call Me by Your Name trajectory and make some sort of impact in the awards race. I'm not gonna sit here and say it is a Nora this year, but I think there is a world where this can be big. I am slightly worried this is premiering the same night as Sentimental Value, which has, I don't know, it has Neon, it has the director of Worst Person in the World, so I think there's a chance that could eclipse anything that comes out of History of Sound, but we don't know. We just have to let Cannes do their thing, let the people down there do their thing, and everything will work out well, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to that one too. I do think that it will do more. You know, it's interesting on my awards expert app. I don't think I have it getting nominated for one single thing, and I think that is a mistake on my part because if we look at Oliver Hernandez, his last film was like Living, right? The Kurosawa remake with Mai. That movie just randomly got into like 3 or 4 categories, and that movie was kind of so underseen, you know? So they obviously know. I feel like this movie's gonna at least have a higher profile than that movie did. I don't see how it couldn't. So I would definitely look out for this one being a big thing. My most anticipated film title from Cannes is the new Ari Aster movie Eddington. This is one of my most anticipated movies of the year. I'm a big Ari Aster head. I think he might be my favorite filmmaker working right now. He's certainly in the top five. I'm a big Beau is Afraid defender. I think that movie is amazing. I understand that it is a wild swing, but I think it's really interesting. I think I just recently rewatched Hereditary in a theater, and it reminded me like, oh yeah, this is like legitimately probably the best horror movie to come out within like the last, I don't know, 2 decades. Like it's perfect. So Eddington's kind of a different swing for Aster. He's definitely going for more of a social commentary within the pandemic. I think he wrote this literally during or shortly after the pandemic to vent out some of his frustrations within how people were acting during that situation, which is interesting. I think this is going to be a good showcase for Joaquin Phoenix to come back in the good public light after last year's Joker 2 and his incident with the Carol guy. Wait, what is his name?
Todd Haynes.
Yeah, Todd
Yeah.
Haynes. Yeah, that whole situation, which is a really bad. Um, Pedro Pascal is in this movie because apparently that man just sleeps in Hollywood's basement and they take him out for whatever movie they need him
It's
for.
clearly a Pedro Pascal summer of that Fantastic Four materialist. So
I
I will
don't
be.
understand how these people have time.
Yeah.
Like, what is happening with your schedule? How on earth are you getting all these movies filmed? It's crazy. Anyway, this to me looks like a weird, different, distinct swing for Ari Aster, who has dealt with surrealism in the past, and it seems like a more boots on the ground, grounded type of approach to storytelling. And to be honest with you, I'm kind of wondering this is going to be a bigger player than we anticipate. For me, the whole social commentary aspect of the film could really help it. I think be somewhat of an awards contender if it's just really good. Because it would be quite a statement to give this movie the palm for the awards body,
Mm-hmm.
especially within our era right now, within the Trump administration era, for them to be like this movie that's essentially mocking the United States. Let's give this the palm would be quite a statement to make. So I'm wondering if they're actually going to. I think it would be really interesting. Regardless of its awards chances, it's just a straight up one of my most anticipated movies of the year. I think it looks great and it sounds great, and it's been on my radar for a very long time. Is there anything else, Jared, that you're like, I don't tickles your fancy is a really weird way to phrase it, but that's the first thing that came to my head for some reason. But is there anything else that you're interested in?
Yeah. So in the uncertain regard category, there is a movie called Pillin, directed by a newcomer named Harry Langton,
Hmm.
and it is about a. It's Alexander Skarsgård and Harry Melling, who was in a really underseen queer indie called Please Baby Please, and he also worked in the Harry Potter movies.
Hmm.
Um, he plays a barbershop quartet singer who's I'm reading from this description from IndieWire, whose life is a sex-lacking dead end, and Alexander Skarsgård plays a aloof biker who asks him on a date on Christmas Eve, and it's supposed to be like turning into kind of an S&M relationship,
Oh,
but this IndieWire person seems to have said that she's seen it or they've seen it, and says that um, the A24 movie turns up graphic sex scenes, but also an emotional core. Even you haven't seen Skarsgård quite like this, and it's supposed to have it teases like a really sweet center within kind of the graphic sexual nature of their scenes. So I'm interested for the cast or the story, and I think I'm also just such a sucker for any kind of movie or story that can be like really raunchy, but also has like a human kind of sweet core to it. Because I think that's such a tricky balance to do. So if this one succeeds, I mean, if you already have A24 behind it, I think that one could be a real surprise for sure.
it feels like to me, it sounds silly, but to me, it kind of sounds like an art house bros, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I didn't know about until again that thing for that IndieWire review. Like I guess it's gonna be Christmas set, so I think it
oh,
would be
interesting.
super interesting. Yeah.
Huh. Oh, another one that I'm my second most anticipated, which is pretty close between these two, honestly. for the festival is Nouvelle Vague. I could be completely butchering that, right?
Yeah.
Um, but it's the new Richard Linklater movie. Which of course, again, if we talk about all time favorites for me, he's way up on the list. But this is a new wave inspired film that's entirely in French, apparently, which is super interesting. About the behind the scenes making of the movie Breathless. Um, a movie I don't even like. So I'm interested to see. But for me, a hangout movie about a bunch of people making like one of the most influential new wave movies of all time sounds like I'm just going to be eating up cinema, honestly. Like it sounds really cool to me. Also like I think watch out for this one kind of surprise getting the palm if it's like fantastic. Because and I love that we're getting two Linklater movies this year, and they both sound equally as interesting. This one's probably a little more on my radar just because I love the idea of it, and I think it's going to aesthetically feel very different. Because
Hmm.
technically, the interesting thing is technically France could submit this as their foreign film nominee, and that would be a
Interesting.
really weird year if Richard Linklater gets in foreign film at the Oscars. But the thing is, I guess, entirely in French. Like the whole
Yeah.
movie is, which is I think that so piques my interest. And like for me, I don't know. Have you ever seen Breathless by any
I
chance?
have not actually, no.
Um, that movie to me is aesthetically so cool and interesting. The only reason I don't like it is because of how insufferable the main character is in it, which is the entire point of the movie. That is the entire point of why you watch that movie is to be like, man, this guy sucks, right? But
Hmm.
like, man, he sucks. It's hard, but I even think that being a commentary could be something that makes this movie interesting because I think most people now agree that the main character of Breathless is just like an awful manipulative human being. So I don't know. I'm very interested in that. Um,
Yeah, because, you know, just thinking about Richard Linklater, I think of like Hitman and I think of like Everybody Wants Some, Dazed and Confused. Just kind of, I just want to say like American like films and like Texas rooted films, I guess you could say as well. So for him and my idea of him to be making like I think I heard it's supposed to be all in black and white as well. Black and
yes.
white
Yeah.
French movie is so intriguing. It seems like such like a career leap as well. So
It
I
does.
always applaud just artists doing that and like I hope it works out for him. I'm definitely intrigued as well.
It does, but it also feels kind of perfect for him at the same time because it is a hangout movie. That's what I've heard. It's
Mm,
people hanging out on set talking about the movie as it's being filmed. And so, that definitely does kind of because Days to Confuse is, I mean, the ultimate hangout movie of all time. Like that is the purpose of that movie. And um even the Before trilogy, all those movies kind of essentially work as hangout movies as well. They just are also so emotionally devastating. Jared, have you seen the Before movies?
no.
Bro, that's like well, I was about to think, I was like, that would be your favorite thing ever. Like those
Yeah.
are so Jared coded that um yeah, I've been meaning to go back and rewatch all of them because I think I watched them in high school, but I got the Criterion box set. So I need to rewatch them all soon. I'm looking at it right now as we speak up on my
Yeah.
wall. But yeah, I'm excited. I think we're both probably excited about the new Wes Anderson movie, The Phoenician.
Yes.
Studio. Yeah.
Um I'm so thankful for you. Me and you understand, unlike most people, how much of a masterpiece Asteroid City was.
Yeah, it's
I feel
amazing.
like I'm the only human being that has it like in their top five of that year. Um, but generally like an amazing masterpiece. When you make a movie like Asteroid City, I think you got me a ticket to see your next movie. So Phoenician Scheme sounds super interesting. Has the styles of Wes Anderson. I think there's a world where Del Toro gets some like buzz because I feel like the role of his story of his role in the story could be something pretty big and emotional too. So I'm excited
Yeah.
to see what goes down, and we're so lucky too that we're gonna get it not long after its premiere here. So
Is,
same with Edgerton too. So
is this coming out the same weekend as Lilo and Stitch and Mission Impossible, or is it
no,
next week?
it
Okay.
comes out it comes out wide June 6th, and
Oh,
then
okay.
limited release on May 30th.
Okay.
But we'll see it June 6th.
And what about Bring Her Back? When is that coming out? Do you know? I
May
know
30th.
what
Yeah.
the
May
30th.
30th, the weekend after the Memorial Day Mission Impossible Lilo and Stitch
Okay.
weekend.
For a second, I thought they were all coming out the same day, and I was like, why?
No, yeah.
Okay.
Bring Her Back, I'm not going to see in theaters because I'm a scaredy cat, but the premise and visuals and all that intrigue me. And Sally Hawkins.
Yeah,
But yeah.
I'm so jazzed. It looks so cool. The Phoenician scheme for me, the only reason why, like, I guess out of can, I would put Eddington and Nouvelle Vague. Again, I don't know if I'm butchering that. I'm so sorry, but I am. Over the Phoenician scheme as far as anticipations, because I have no idea what those two movies are going to look like or the reaction to them are going to be. I have a pretty good idea of the way people will respond to the Phoenician scheme. Um, I feel like it'll be another Wes Anderson thing where some people absolutely love it and some people are like, it's too Wes Anderson-y for me. And then it's gonna come out and it's gonna be great. You know what I mean? Like it just feels like
Yeah.
he does the same thing. Like I'll say it seems like he does the same thing over and over again, but like in a good way. Like not in a way where he's making the same movie over and over again, but like the response to his movies all seem very similar, you know? Um
Mm-hmm.
and maybe we get like a Grand Budapest Hotel type beat where just like everyone comes out to support this one. And to be fair, this movie like seems like it's more cohesively narrative than his last few movies, like more traditionally narrative. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe it'll respond to more people in that way. But it is weird how like cold people have gotten to his last few movies, even though they've all been great. Like I think Isle of Dogs, French Dispatch, Asteroid City are all like fantastic movies.
Mm.
So I'm excited for it
Yeah.
for sure. Anything else that has piqued your interest?
So just kind of quickly, two ones that I want to shout out. Eleanor the Great, I think is super interesting because I kind of agree with some people said that screams like, oh, a Sundance or a TIFF thing, but that it's in in the regard section
Hmm.
at Cannes, I think has certainly piqued some interest. It's Scarlett Johansson's directorial debut. And I'm even hearing that it's a little more of a drama than a comedy than the premise suggests, which is about like June Squibb kind of reinventing her life after her best friend dies. So like, and it's Sony Pictures Classic, so I think that intrigues me. If it gets good buzz, maybe June Squibb could be a nominee on Oscar night at the
Mhm.
Dolby Theater. And then the rumors behind this next one are that's pretty bad, and it's out of competition slot. Maybe suggests it, but I'm still hyped for Highest to Lowest. Spike Lee and
Yeah,
Denzel Washington, who is one of my favorite actors. Um, I think you can't go wrong with that collaboration. I think there's gonna be some visuals and some greatness that the two of them will bring together. And if anything, it's gonna be a fun time. I wish they didn't announce that I was gonna go on Apple like so soon, and that I might hit its theatrical chances. But I'm gonna try and support it in the theaters, so hopefully
yeah.
that can matter. But
I'm a
I'm
I'm
interested
a
in that
little
one.
worried about it because it really feels like that they're muting the hype on it
Yeah,
in the way they've been promoting it. And the thing is like Spike Lee was the festival director of Cannes a few years ago, and now his movie isn't making competition. And I'm like, man, I don't know what's going on with that. That's very bizarre to me.
hmm
That it wouldn't be in competition unless they smell an old boy. And so
yeah,
I'm really hoping that's not the case, but I'm a little concerned. Um, but see, for me, a few others I was interested in. I think the new Julia DeCormo Alpha will be an interesting time. It
hmm
sounds a lot more grounded than something like Titan,
yeah.
and
I
so
mean, no one knows. It could go into like the usual body horror of it all, but
yeah,
I would be see if it is something more grounded and a pure drama.
Totally, yeah. Die My Love, the new Lynn Ramsey. I'm hyped
Yeah.
for that. I'm hyped to hear reactions of that. I'm waiting to see if that actually becomes an award contender. I kind of have it around like 11, 12 right now because I feel like she could have a moment similarly to like a Sean Baker, but at the same time, her movies are very didactic and very uncomfortable usually. Um,
Hmm.
there are very few movies that have disturbed because I Jared knows this. I've seen a lot of like messed up movies in my life, and it's really hard to get me like actually like freaked out and disturbed. Um, you Were Never Really Here, her last movie with Joaquin Phoenix, was a movie I walked out of like actually shaking. It was like
Wow.
I
Yeah.
haven't been able to revisit that movie because it really freaked me out. Like it's a very, if you guys, I don't want to spoil what it's about if you haven't seen it. When you figure out what that movie's about, it's just like gut wrenching. But she's super talented. Like that movie is so good. So I'm really excited to see what she does with that. The new Joaquin, the new I can't speak Sentimental Value, the new Joachim Trier movie. Um,
Hmm.
I think it's one we're both anticipating off of Worst Person in the World, a movie I desperately need to rewatch. Um, but that one looks like it could win in competition or at least become a big breakout in this year's awards race because of the momentum of Worst Person in the World. I am a little afraid that we could get the reactions and people say it's kind of not as good as Worst Person, and then that will hinder its chances. But I still think it's something we could look out for.
Hmm.
So those are a few looking down the list that I can hit. Anything else you're thinking that we could hit before we move on to Thunderbolts?
I would just say Kristen Stewart's directorial debut, also the chronology of water, which is a movie she even like she even said like I will not act anymore if I don't get the chance to make this film, and then she somehow found a way to make this film. It's been a long time coming. It's based on a popular memoir.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, no, I think it sounds interesting. The lead actress. I saw her at TIFF. She was in a movie at TIFF. I realized,
Oh,
but her character, I guess the real person, is supposed to be very interesting. Her story is like about struggle and like I don't know. It could be something interesting as well. I think there are a lot of great films on this lineup. I'm like, this is an amazing lineup, and I'm
yeah.
just so anxiously waiting to hear what people think about everything and see what goes down.
Um, Two more I'll bring up before we go on.
Hmm.
Honey Don't is new Ethan Cohen movie, which that
Hmm.
could be interesting. It's a midnight screening, which is kind of what piques my interest. I'm like, a Cohen's is a midnight screening, so is this thing going to get a little bonkers, a little weird? That's intriguing to me. So I'll have to look out for that to see the reaction to that. And then we might as well just bring up Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, which is having its premiere here at Cannes. It's
Hmm.
already been screened,
Yeah.
and the reactions so far have been kind of mixed. I feel like, but not horrendous.
Yeah.
um, I'm interested to see if the reaction to the movie either improves or we see it go down the toilet. you know,
Yeah. I'm
one
very
movie's
worried.
gonna be like 70% on Rotten Tomatoes or 30%. I can't really tell right now.
Yeah. I rewatched. It's funny. I rewatched the last one last night with my family, and that train sequence is so spectacularly like I don't know, palm sweaty, and
It's
it's
so good.
like it's so well done. Tom Cruise, savior of cinema.
Yeah, Haley Atwell, savior of my heart.
Yeah.
But no, that movie's fantastic, and like the IMAX, like seeing that in IMAX was so cool. Um,
Mhm.
Same with Fallout. I mean,
Yeah,
those
I think
movies are just
Fallout's
like,
my favorite of all of them for sure.
yeah, my favorite actually. Like, I love Fallout, and I get why everyone like deems that's the best one. It's probably fair. I'm a big Ghost Protocol person. I still think it's my favorite.
Yeah, Brad Bird in the house.
Yeah, you know me and my Brad Bird love. I gotta represent Ghost Protocol, but
when
like,
when we make the Tomorrowland maybe is underrated episode. I mean, I haven't watched this since I went to midnight screening when I was like 14, 15, but
I will
I
say we
remember.
need to make that episode, and it's not maybe underrated. It is underrated.
Okay, I
I'm
was like,
not
"What's
thinking
your
of it. Yeah,
take?
I'm
What's your?"
thinking it's a good movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, I might argue it's a very good movie. Um, but I think he's only made one bad movie, and that's Incredibles 2, but that's a whole other take.
Yeah.
But no, I very much like Tomorrowland. I've repped that movie a few times.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I think that's our can coverage.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm so excited. Oh my gosh. I think cinema is
really,
going to be alive this year. I have on my Letterboxd a list of like just on my watch list for 2025, and October is so stacked. I have like it's like the Smashing Machine and Kiss of Spider Woman and Tron like all on the same day.
that's
And
crazy.
then next week, the weekend after that is After the Hunt. Let me pull it up really quickly.
Yeah.
So it's like Roof Man with Channing Tatum and the director Blue Valentine, which I think could be really interesting, and the Smashing Machine on the same day. And then actually on October 10th is the new Daniel Day-Lewis movie, Kiss of a Spider Woman and
Wow.
Tron Ares. On October 17th is After the Hunt. October 24th is the other Richard Linklater, Blue Moon,
Oh
which
yeah.
I'm hyped for. And October 21st is Yorgos Lanthimos' Begonia. So October is stacked. And yeah.
And this fall you'll have a new film by me
Yeah.
on YouTube, maybe. So there you go. It's a Brett Scott production. Anyway, yeah,
Yeah.
no, I'm excited about this year too, especially because like I liked a lot of movies from last year, but to be honest with you, it was not my favorite year for movies at all. So I'm ready to go back to like 2021. No, not 2021. 2021 was okay. 2022,
Mm-hmm.
or I think 2022 was a great one. 2023 was an insane one too, with like Barbie Oppenheimer year.
Oh, yeah.
Um, of course, my dearly beloved 2019, which might still be on record the best film year since I followed movies. Honestly,
Mm-hmm.
um, I think those are the top three in some order: 2022, 2023, 2019. Like,
Mm-hmm.
just like when you have a film year where there's 4.5 out of 5 star movies that don't make the 10 list, you know it's been a good year.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. So, but let's move on to a movie that was really impressive from this year, in my opinion, and
Mm-hmm.
that is the new Marvel movie, The Thunderbolts, which
Yes.
recently came out. Um, it's doing okay right now, which is kind of a bummer. um, People aren't rushing out to see it because the last few Marvel movies haven't been great. So for our 50 listeners, please like go out and see Thunderbolts. Like
Exactly, yeah.
support this movie. It's great. I'll
Yeah,
ask
there
you,
was.
Jared,
Mm-hmm.
when this movie was first announced, what were your thoughts? What were your opinions? What were your expectations going into it? And like, how did that coincide with your reaction to the movie?
Yeah. The first trailer starts, right? And it's kind of the scene of Yelena going to Alexi's house, and she's like, "Dad, I've been feeling like a void, like there's been no purpose," and that kind of sets off the trailer with the montage of all the other kind of teases what to come in this movie. I'm like, okay, I like that angle. If it's not like Marvelized, I think we're onto something pretty great. Look at the director Jake Schneider. He just came off a really big success with TV's Beef from 2023. Look at the script writers, and it's people from The Bear, from BoJack Horseman. That right, I'm like, okay, this really leveled up. And then as more things dropped, I'm like, this could be really good, you guys. I know it's hard in this world where we're very anti Marvel on film Twitter and whatnot, but look at the team, and then hearing that this was kind of the first Marvel project where they're like, hey, okay, Disney studio heads, we were wrong. We can't just be pumping out content for content's sake. Let's make this quality over quantity, and let's make sure this works. I'm like, Okay, we're going up now. We're going up the levels. And then I was there on May 2nd and I watched it and it's pretty good. They did handle the mental health aspect, I think, as well as they could have, and to try to balance that big Marvel movie aspect. Um, it helps too that I think I really like. Oh, I guess we should say, by the way, we are going to spoilers.
Full spoilers. We cannot
Yeah,
talk about Thunderbolts without going into full spoilers. Like,
yeah, exactly. I think just the MC. I was talking this with my group I went to go see it with. I'm like, I think the MCU has been missing a team up movie for so long. Um, I feel like a lot of it has been solo projects to introduce new casts or solo projects to deepen some characters like WandaVision or Loki. It was just super nice to kind of team up, and then boom, at the end, we have our new Avengers. And so, yeah, and then, yeah, I really liked it. Anyway, back to you.
yeah, when I first heard about the pitching of the movie, like they're like Thunderbolts. We get the kind of the bad misfits from some of the lower tier movies, and we put them in a movie together. I went, all right, wanting to be James Gunn after you just fired him, cool. That was kind of where I was like, interesting. So you're just gonna do your own Suicide Squad, man. But I was like kind of skeptical. I was like, I don't know. That very much feels like an idea that's been played. And not only that, these characters that they're introducing into this world are from materials that didn't quite hit. So Yelena and Red Guardian are introduced obviously in the Black Widow movie. Do people talk about the Black Widow movie ever in normal casual conversation? No. It might be the most forgotten MCU movie ever made. It's not the worst one by any means, but it's probably the most forgotten one. Like it just
I I would argue Ant-Man the Wasp personally, but
is. Oh, are you talking about like the second Ant-Man movie?
yeah, I think I don't know if anyone remembers any plot details from that movie because I certainly don't.
Yeah, I don't. To be honest with you, I couldn't tell you what happens in that movie at the moment. I
Exactly.
just
Yeah.
remembered enjoying it. Like that's like I legit, and I'm telling you guys, there's a big chunk of the Marvel movies I don't like. But whatever reason, Ant-Man and the Wasp, I remember having a really good time with that one. I remember being like, this is kind of fun. But also like it's really hard for me to dislike Paul Rudd.
That's
I
true.
think
Yeah.
he's just really funny and just genuinely likable. For me, he's the anti Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah.
Every time I see Ryan Reynolds on screen, my blood curdles a little bit because I think he's just really annoying. And when Paul Rudd shows up on screen, I'm like, oh, I love that guy. It's Paul
Yeah,
Rudd.
he has a
Cool.
warm presence, and he's like he's hopefully a very nice human being.
Seems like he would be. I mean, he did
Yeah.
run by us. Were you there at TIFF when he ran by us?
Yes, I was gonna say
Funniest
yes.
thing.
We were on the street at TIFF, and he walked right by us because his car, I guess, broke down, and he had to go to the Midnight Madness premiere of Friendship. So
Yeah.
that was surreal for like 2 seconds.
Yeah, he was booking it there. You could tell he was not happy, but like,
Yeah.
who would blame him?
Yeah.
So I'll give him a pass for that. Um, but yeah, for me, even like the new Captain America guy, the Kurt Russell's son.
Yeah.
He's from Falcon and Winter Soldier, which I mean, to be fair, a lot is coming from that show. They have built a lot of plot from that show in particular, which is interesting. Um,
Yeah.
but it wasn't like stuff where like that hit really big. And so for me, I'm like, that's interesting in a way because it's like, let's take these characters we think have potential and really flesh them out into their own movie and make them A-list characters in a similar way to what James Gunn did once again with Guardians of the Galaxy. So I was like, maybe they have an idea there. And then kind of what Jared was saying, you didn't hear about the talent that was behind this movie, and they did this really genius marketing that was like absolute cinema, kind of mocking the Martin Scorsese memes and going like, this is from the cinematographer of The Green Knight and the director of Beef and the stars of like A Different Man, like pitching this as like, this is an elevated superhero movie, this is an elevated Marvel movie, we're caring about what we're making versus just content. And that was the right approach to take this because of the what Marvel's been pit against lately, which is the fact that they are just a company that's making product and that's literally it, you know. Especially coming off the heels of something like Captain America Brave New World, which is bland incarnate, you know, like there's nothing
Oh my gosh, yeah.
interesting about that movie whatsoever. And even then, like, and this is all respect to the director of Captain America Brave New World, because I don't think this is his fault. I think there's a lot of extensive reshooting and retooling of that movie. Actually, we'll get into it, but I actually have a theory about how that movie went so spectacularly wrong. But like, you watch Captain America Brave New World, and like almost every shot is like shot reverse shot, shot reverse shot type of filmmaking going on, where it's
Hmm.
like I could be tuning into a 7 p.m. NBC network drama in a hospital, and it would look like this. Like this isn't why we're going to see movies right now.
Hmm.
And one of the first things that made me actually take a deep breath and go, okay, we're in good hands. Well, the opening scene of Thunderbolts was a hallway fight sequence where the camera is on Elena and then it pulls out and you see the entirety of the hallway as she fights everyone, and then the camera follows her back. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, it's like someone's actually thinking about this.
Yeah, not to mention, like, I think the voiceover looks really well as sort of an introduction to people of like Yolanda being like, my life is just like I feel numb. My jobs just are there as she's finding this hallway and interesting in that scene. It's not shot well. Not let me rephrase that. It's not shot like where you can see everyone's faces. It's very dark. You can honestly say it's probably symbolism of the void, as we see later on in the movie. It's just faceless bodies that she's pummeling down in the dark, shooting in the head as she is going on this mission. And it's so like, okay, I like that choice. I like the lighting and where this is going. So yeah, I totally agree with you on all of that. Um, yeah.
Yeah, it's and again, like I said, it said it's a cinematographer of The Green Knight did this movie, and I think that reads actually.
Hmm.
Not that this movie looks as good as The Green Knight, because like it doesn't, because like not many movies do look as good as The Green Knight. That's not a knock on this movie, but
Yeah.
like usually a thing that really bothers me in these Marvel movies are their lack of color theory. Like just so many Marvel movies, it feels like they throw every color on the board on screen. And if you don't know, like, this is someone who comes from very much an art background and a drawing background. Um, a lot of people mistake lots of color for being colorful, but if you mix a bunch of colors together, it's going to look brown. That's how color theory works. So, and you can't really fix that with Avengers Endgame because there's so much going on at screen at once. But you had those film Twitter clips when Avengers Endgame came out. That's like, why does the scene look like mud? That's why there's so much color going on.
Yeah.
It's just like, what is there to look at? This all looks, if you pick two really bright complementary colors in a scene, it's going to look more colorful, even if you're only shooting with three colors. That is what Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 does so well. And James Gunn actually brings it up in the commentary. And I'm like, man, I bless you for actually talking about this, because this is something that I've harked on for so long. Um, I've even like in our award shows, I'll even be like, should have a color theory category, and it's something that I'm like really passionate about. Because color is important. But anyways, Thunderbolts looks like it has a bunch of gray hues, which would usually drive me nuts. But for whatever reason in this movie, it like utilizes its gray hues in a really interesting way, to where in each shot I was like, this is really well constructed and it looks really good. And I feel a similar way to Winter Soldier. That's kind of where this harkens back to, is the sense of
Hmm.
realism that Winter Soldier had. And while Winter Soldier is a very grounded movie, like it still looks really good. Each shot like looks really well helmed, and it seems like they actually find the natural lighting and color in most of the scenes of that movie. There's some boardroom scenes that look a little dull, but like whatever, it happens. It's
Hmm.
There's not much you can do to a boardroom.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. But there is times, even in this movie, where I'm like, guys, just turn off one light, and you're gonna have a little bit more of a dynamic light if you just turn off one light back there. 3-point lighting, guys. Like, come on, let's do it. Like, everyone's face looks like they're overexposed, but it's fine. It's cool. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's interesting you brought up like it's a lot of story is from like coming from Brave New World. Maybe that's why it has to be a movie, but I think it's a lot of for some reason Marvel is really focusing on the government aspect of the MCU at this time versus like when we go to like Doctor Strange for Magic or Guardians of the Galaxy for space stuff. Which I know sounds boring, but to me finds a little interesting. They bring up a point in the movie of the Avengers aren't coming anymore. And I think what's interesting is because I always got the impression that Tony Stark was able to like Tony Stark and maybe even Shield was able to keep funding for something like the Avengers. They're both gone. What's the government like supposed to do now? Um, and so I guess that's kind of also kind of like the thrusting point of this movie. Our kind of main villain is Julia Louise Dreyfus, who's always a pleasure to have around. She's a little like there for the movie as Valentina, but she does kind of kick off the plot in terms of she's being investigated, and she is not really a good person, of course. And so she's like, I'm gonna kill everyone and everything about my dirty past, which includes, unfortunately, our lovely Thunderbolts, Yelena, John Walker, Ghost, Taskmaster. So they all get sent to this like bunker. Um, and yeah, that the bunker is a pretty great sequence to kind of start off with. A fun fact I've learned is that in the original draft, the whole movie was going to take place in that bunker, which I'm like,
that's interesting.
interesting. I like where this movie went more, but
Well, if this movie ended in Act 3 the way that it did, and it all took place in the bunker, I think that would have been really interesting. That would have been really cool. Um, but this movie has to get where it gets to in Act 3 in order for it to work, in my opinion.
mm-hmm.
So if they had to get out of that bunker in order to get there, then I'm glad that they did. But also, it is a little ambitious for a Marvel movie to all take place within one location. Like, that would have
Yeah,
been very fascinating and different.
yeah.
But
I I do want to say too, in the bunker, Taskmaster gets killed,
yeah,
which is like, of course, no one like was like a huge Taskmaster fan. There's no shirts or action figures.
except for Sean, past and future guest on this podcast, Sean. I'm really sorry about your friendship.
Oh really? Oh
Yeah,
gosh, sorry man.
no, it's all good. But he was like, no.
Yeah. I honestly felt bad too because the actress is a pretty like new name and would have been cool to like have her have a shot. It's the same deal too with recasting Ant-Man's daughter. It's a different person that was than you see in Endgame. And it's like we can give some new talent a break, Marvel. It's okay. But yeah, but I do really like kind of the bunker kind of fight scene, showing everyone's styles, like how Ghost is able to like go in different places, and everyone's fighting styles as they kind of like it's kind of symbolism of like running bulls like butting into each other. Everyone's sent to kill the other person, and then I think Yelena is thrown into a container that activates Bob, played brilliantly by Lewis Pullman. This man that just comes out wearing I don't know what the word is to describe what he's wearing, like scrubs, but doesn't know what he's got there. It's very much like a what's going on situation. But yeah, what are your thoughts? I don't know if we should do like a scene for scene of the movie, but just focusing on this bunker. What were your thoughts on it? Our introduction to Bob, who's pretty new, and all that jazz.
I thought it was fun. I This movie for me really gets focused in Act 3. That being said, as someone, again, I've been very much like, I've been wanting a Marvel movie to at least be a 6. Like that's where I'm going into with this movie, is because that's what they used to be for me. Like when I go to a theater and I'd watch like Doctor Strange or like the first Ant-Man, like these movies, they were movies that I really enjoyed in theaters and I never revisited again because I was like, hey, these are entertaining. Like that's where I'm at, you know. And when these scenes in Thunderbolts, I think that's kind of where I was at, but a little better than that because I did like the characters more. I think Bob is a really interesting character. I think Bob's one of the most interesting characters in the MCU. Same with Elena. And so these characters interacting with each other and bouncing off of each other's energy was enough to keep me entertained. But for me, I think an issue this movie is going to have, longevity sake, is their marketing of it being like this is like an A24 drama with superheroes. Because if you go into that mindset and watch the stuff in the bunker, you're going to be like, what, this just feels like a Marvel movie, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it does. Like they have the riffing on each other and the jokes and the action that's kind of just like Marvel. And even the same, like it's cutting back to like Julia Louise Dreyfus office talk. She's almost mustache twirling in scenes, being like, I'm gonna eliminate them and then I'm going to rule the world or whatever. And I'm like, all right, girl, Syndrome tried this in the Incredibles like 20 years ago and it didn't work for him. You know, like it's the same motivation. Um, but it's so for me, I was really enjoying it. I was. I thought this was fun. This is good. But there was this part of me that was like, but I think I was sold the wrong movie. um, I wanted this to be a little more subversive, and I liked Elena at the beginning talking about her grief, and I liked that angle to this movie, and I feel like they're going to put that at the back side for this fun action adventure set piece thing, which is fine. Um, and again, she has a really nice moment with Bob, and I'm like, I hope that becomes the central focus. And then we get into the third act, and that's what it becomes.
Mm-hmm.
And then I legitimately think the third act of this movie is one of my favorite things I've seen Marvel ever do, point blank, period, in a story.
Heck
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Um, yeah, and trying, yeah, because then the second act is basically prep for. I just want to point out a couple scenes before we get to third act that I
Yeah.
liked. There is a just like I want to shout out David Harper. I think he's really funny in the role, and then we'll get to
He
it
is,
later. But he has a scene with Yelena that's like 10 out of 10. We love dramatic acting, you know.
he's a
But
great actor. And I think
yeah,
sometimes he gets a little underappreciated because he's one of these actors that's in everything. Like you're
yeah,
like, man, David Harbour in another movie, but he somehow elevates every role that he's in.
yeah.
So I do
When
appreciate him in that regard.
when I tell you that, guys, this guy was in Brokeback Mountain, like,
Yeah,
and he's done like so many like Broadway plays, and I think he at least has like a Tony nomination. So he's like an actor. So I hope he gets like that Oscar-worthy role one of these days in the future.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, just the scene where he goes to pick up the group was like, really funny. Um, and then there's a scene kind of right before the third act where Bucky has captured like the four of them. And if you know me, I love kind of like the little details kind of guy. Um, and they're all kind of telling him like, oh, there's this threat with Bob, and he kind of doesn't believe them until he gets a call from Jill Louise Dreyfus's assistant about like, hey, she's doing something really bad here in New York. Um, but anyway, one point in the scene, he kind of tells the group that John Walker's like wife and kids had left him, which the group didn't know before. And there's kind of like a there's a moment where Yelena just like turns to look at him, and then it's a shot of him looking at her back, and his face is kind of just like a yeah, like
yeah,
that's my life now. Previously, they all thought he was still with his wife and kids, same with the audience, I guess. But I don't know. It was just such a nice like moment, kind of be like, yeah, I lied. like what else? My life sucks. And it kind of like is that dramatic through line of like all their lives suck. I mean, are at such like a low point right now. Like we saw earlier, even Lexi is like, you know, living in like a sham house and doesn't seem to be doing too good either. Ghost is kind of drifting. I wish we got a little more on her, but that's something else on another time. Um, but I think it's through that they're so lucky that this group came together. And then we get into everything too when Bob gets captured. I thought it was really interesting that he touches Julie Louise Dreyfus, and we see a scene from her childhood where she basically is like she gave up her father to be killed. Which I think it's super interesting. They don't dig into that because that's so much for a movie. I get that, but I think I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, that's interesting. Let's dig into that maybe a little more sometime. And like,
I feel like they will because she still has to be a big part of this universe because she's essentially, I mean, not to skip to the very end, she's essentially the one that sells them as the new Avengers, you know.
yeah,
So she
exactly.
still has to be
So
a part of this.
so that's super interesting. Like Bob gained powers, and then the third act happens, right? Which is like they meet Bob, but Bob is now Serenity, and this like classic comics inspired suit. Lewis Pullman again, great job where you could tell he's trying to fit into this role, but like it doesn't fit. It's like he's trying to put on a smile, but something is like I don't like it could have been something small where just in my interpretation, like the cape wasn't fitting. It just like like you could tell he's uncomfortable, but he's trying to fit in because Julia Louise Dreyfus is telling him that he's good and sees the potential in him. Which leads to this also kind of cool fight scene with where they have to fight him because he's gonna kill them and all that jazz. And I really love we get a superhero movie where they fight him and then they're like, "Oh shit, he's gonna really kill us. Let's run into the elevator and go down." You know, like it's sick. Yeah.
Yeah, I love all of that too. And again, those little details really do end up making all the difference when these characters are confronted with their past at the end. It's an interesting statement you made about the John Walker character because I think that scene establishes earlier that he is the one being emotionally abusive in this relationship, right? Like he's a jerk,
Mm.
essentially to his family, and so you should just really be like, yeah, I'm glad they got out, but you still feel like a tinge of sympathy for him in that moment because you realize
Mhm.
that he knows that he messed up, and that's where the BoJack Horsemanisms of the script really come in because
Yeah.
that's that entire show is like you see BoJack is this like terrible, awful person, and yet every episode you're like wanting him to get better. You're like, please, like I'm rooting for you because I know deep down inside there's like good in you, and yet you want to change, but there's something about him that fundamentally can't change, and that sort of attention to writing character is present in the characters in Thunderbolts, which is interesting, even though they do have he doesn't really have much of a redemption arc, but obviously Elena does and Bob does, you know. Which is really nice. I love that. I love the fact that these characters are more complicated than a lot of the other Marvel characters. Because for instance, like, and don't get me wrong, I love like Captain America, right?
Hmm.
Captain America by default is a Boy Scout. He wants to do the right thing, and he's always wanted to do the right thing. And sure, he grapples with loss in the series, and um, what if even what he's doing is right and standing up for, like even within like Captain America: Civil War. But ultimately, you get he's just like he's a good guy. And even to a certain extent, like Tony Stark is a little more damaged because obviously he starts the series as this billionaire soulless capitalist selling like these missiles and these weapons of war to like foreign countries, the nuke, and then he's just collecting the benefits from it. And then he realizes what he did was wrong and is trying to make amends to that. And he's still trying to make amends to that for the entire series, which is what makes the sacrifice in game all the more powerful. Is the fact that like he saved everyone after being responsible for funding people that were killing innocent people. You know, it's like a full circle thing. So it's not the fact that these characters aren't inherently complicated. That is one thing that I do kind of take a little disservice to when Martin Scorsese talked about these movies a long time ago, and he said about how the characters were kind of just there. You know, I do think there is certain solid character development and building within these characters throughout the series if you're paying attention. It's just sometimes the movies themselves can get a little flat. Um, just because so many of them are made and it's kind of treated like a giant television arc after a while. But um, all that is to say, I think something that really makes the Thunderbolts works as a movie is the fact that the characters are more down to earth. It isn't like there's like a giant like mythical god being with them, or even James Gunn did that so well. Even with a talking raccoon, he was able to get you to see the humanity of that character and him not wanting to be born or made, and him pretty much being forced to be who he is and having to confront that. And that's the type of stuff that Marvel needs to go into. I had a professor in college one time say that the most important aspect to a movie is the plot, and I actually rose rose my hand in class and went, I vehemently disagree with that. Can we discuss that? And she was like, oh, okay. Like I was that student because I'm like, people don't care about plotting in a movie. They don't care about government meetings where they have to explain or this what Sokovian whatever where it came from and this world or whatever, yada yada yada, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's all in service. That's all set dressing to a movie trying to make you feel something. And it can convey and make you like a movie can make you convey and feel something if it has a really good story that's really intricate, or a movie that just essentially is trying to make you feel something. Like you can explain what happens in Eraserhead pretty easily in a few sentences, but it is an hour and a half of just pure like what is happening right now. I feel like I'm in a disassociated state, and it makes you feel something. It makes you react to the movie, and that's what movies do at their best. And I think Marvel has been so tied into setting up this next movie and this next arc and these characters to be here for this function to go that they've forgotten how to make movies that make people actually care and empathize with the characters. And that's kind of where Thunderbolts comes in and goes, oh, we're going to create these really interesting characters that have flaws, and we're going to make them relatable and grounded to an audience that share a similar catharsis of flaws. I think Yelena's yearning for meaning in her life and feeling lost and frustrated is kind of a post-pandemic feeling that a lot of people have, and them harking on that is the reason why people are interested in Marvel again. You see headlines that are like, "Oh, I'm sold on Marvel again. I'm interested to see what happens." It's because they have an investment in characters. It's not because they have an investment of whatever cameo is going to show up in Doomsday. It's like
Yeah.
that's not the reason why people came to these movies to begin with. You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. It's yeah. No, it's just because I'm going back and replaying that amazing scene between Yelena and Alexei. They continuing in the story. The Thunderbolts are basically defeated. They don't have superpowers. A couple of them have super soldier serum, but they're not Thor, and they're not. They're what are they gonna do? Punch and fight some more until they're dead? They're very defeated. And so Yelena really, like I don't. What am I trying to say? Yelena gets to a point where she like shuts down, in my interpretation, and she like just starts offending some people a little bit, and then she storms off, and Lexi goes after her, and it's like a big breakdown sequence that's beautifully done. um I'm really loving Florence Pugh as an actress.
Yeah, she's so
She
good.
does. I remember telling you beforehand. There's a thing she does really well where it's like a almost crying on a line. And then there's a saying, I guess, in the acting world too. I've learned recently where it's like it's better. Just very paraphrasing it. It's like it's better skill as an actor to learn like how not to cry than a full on like sobbing like oh my gosh he's dead.
Yeah,
And I think Florence Pugh has got that down, especially in the scene where she's like Alexi's like it's okay, we have like our mistakes, we have that's who we are. And then she says she's like but I have so many, she has so much, I don't know, trauma and like just general sadness and emptiness. I mean, which is so hard because I think even I remember a character saying to her, "You were." I think John says to her like, you were a child assassin from
yeah,
the start. It's not your fault." Like, and just to see her kind of like break down a little that way was just so. It was so important for the character for this story that she is just like a human who fights really well, that really gets it down to the bare essentials. And it's just going back to what you're saying. I think a good movie, just period, needs to be able to connect to an audience and to have real like emotion at it compared to something like Captain America Brave New World, which was just like I don't know, pure action movie that was done okay. There where I didn't really insanely care for the characters as much as I did here because of that scene. So yeah. And then this amazing third act where Serenity is killed in quotation marks, except he's not because he becomes the void and this like entity that starts voiding people, which um I'm taking away on my interpretation is like depression, right? Like kind of this depression certified of like there's nothing you can do, give up, you
hmm
know. Um you're so sad and like you're such a loser, like just give up kind of deal. Um which we learn out void he voids people into, I think the term online is like these shame rooms, but I guess they're just like past traumas. Um which is such a cool idea. I get a movie only has so much time. Would have loved to have seen like a room for all of the characters, but we do only mostly see Yelena because she's the one that kind of sacrifices herself. I want to get your opinion on this because I think it could be kind of different interpretations. Do you think when she walks into the void, it is a suicidal thing?
yeah,
Yeah, okay. That's what
yeah.
I
I
got
think
too.
so. Yeah, I,
It's just so like,
yeah. For me, in my opinion, um, yeah, that Red Guardian Elena chat, right? To the
mm-hmm.
end of the movie is where I'm just like, oh, this movie's like a 9 or a 10 for me. Like, I think all that, especially like the stuff in the world of Bob, um, and I think Florence Pugh's monologue to him is legitimate. Like, and maybe people will be like, kind of, I don't know, pompous when I say this. It's award worthy.
Yeah.
Like, I think her performance in this is like maybe the best performance in a Marvel movie, and I might put a period at the end of that sentence because you really do see an entire arc of her character in a way that we usually don't see in a Marvel movie, which is why they think they're trying to sell it as like an A24 adjacent Marvel movie, is because they're like, oh, this character is actually dealing with something, and we address that. And what I love is, again, if we sorry to this beat up on Brave New World, but
Yeah.
there's a scene in Brave New World, and I guess spoilers, you haven't seen that movie, but like, who cares? Um, where Sam Wilson is at the hospital, and then Bucky comes in and like he has a speech about doing the right thing, right, or whatever. And it's a nice speech. It was like the best scene in the movie until like Sam's like, "What? Did you rehearse that before you came into the room?" And it's like, "Okay, cool. Thanks for killing any tension the scene had. Thank you very much, Marvel."
Yeah.
And that was infuriating to me because all of a sudden I went, "Okay, so these aren't going to be serious movies anymore." That's what they're saying is like, yeah, no, we have to like cut the tension with a joke anytime because like we're Marvel, and I'm like, cool. That scene, it has a little lighthearted thing where she goes like, well, after Red Guardian says like, I don't see you for your mistakes or your flaws, I see you for you, type of a lot more poignantly said in the movie than what I'm saying right now. Like it's a really good thing. Elena goes something like, "Okay, yeah, that was really good," or whatever.
Yeah.
um, it's not a joke though. It feels like a genuine reaction from the character, and it kind of like has a little bit of a lighthearted touch, but it doesn't break the poignancy of that scene. And I'm like, thank goodness
Yeah.
they have these screenwriters that aren't treating this like it's a comedy show, like the last, I don't know, 5 other Marvel movies that like. At a point, I don't really feel like I'm even watching a movie anymore. I feel like I'm watching people perform improv in front of me, and I'm like, I don't care. Like, so it's that was super refreshing, I think.
Yeah. I
And yeah,
I do want to say I forgot before before everyone goes into the void. Super nice to see because Bob kind of starts destruction in the city. It was nice having a couple of scenes where every member of the Thunderbolts gets to save someone and they get to
yeah,
feel like heroes for a little bit. Um, like the civilians clapping and like again, everything to me what matters are the small details that aren't gonna matter to like a major studio head, but it's the little choices like that or the shot of John Walker's face in the second middle half of the movie that really make the movie for me for sure. Um, when we get into like when she goes into the room, there's a detail that someone pointed out that blew my mind. But anyway, yeah.
yeah. Another thing I wanted to bring up was I think the design of Bob in his like shadowy state um is incredibly cool. I really love the way that character looks,
Mm-hmm.
and it's so dead simple. But it also shows that like less can be so much more in that regard because I think it's very eerie. Um, but I love his shadow thing and how he just makes people dissolve,
Yeah.
and that is horrific. And one a scene in the movie that really stood out to me is the one where Red Guardian saves his little girl, and there's
Mm-hmm.
a moment where people applaud him. He looks at her, and then he just makes the little girl dissipate, and she just becomes a shadow within the wall. And that was another moment where I went, "Oh, okay." Like I stood up a little bit in my seat because I was like, "That's a horrific image.
Yeah.
That's a horrific image." If you really think about it, just the fact that like you can snap and someone can be gone and dissipate, and not only that, I'm going to say this as well intentioned as I can. um, a lot of people will integrate post 9/11 trauma within their set pieces. Um, Zack Snyder's very familiar with this. You see Batman v Superman, and it very much feels like post 9/11 anxiety. It's very not often. That's a weird way to put it. Where people put post Hiroshima anxieties within their films,
Mm,
and
yeah.
that's really what it reminded me of. Like it reminded me of I can't imagine being someone who lived in Hiroshima and then all of a sudden one day your friends and family just disappearing in the blink of an eye
Mm-hmm.
because an atomic bomb dropped on you. Like we can't even imagine that as an American public. Like what if you're just walking around one day and all of a sudden, boom, like over half of the people in the United States are gone and they
Yeah.
just dissipated. Which I mean, I guess you could technically say happened in Avengers: Infinity War as well. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like I hate to compare like real life horror to a comic book movie. Like I kind of like want to distinctly make it clear that it is not apples to oranges, obviously. But I'm saying within the context of the film, that's what it reminded me of.
Mm-hmm.
Like the shadow on the wall and them dissipating like that remind me of like, oh, that's what it must have felt like when the drum bombed in Hiroshima. Like,
Mm.
and I think that's the implications of that are terrifying, and it immediately gives the third act of this movie so much more tension than just like a giant laser beam shooting in the middle of a town and them having to stop it.
Yeah.
Like it feels like the threat is a whole lot more intimate in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
Like it feels more real. I think that's the way I can describe it as.
Yeah. I mean, especially too for Yelena, I think, she established like a real connection with Bob in the beginning. And I think that's another point to see him turn into this, to turn into the void, is again adds to the tension levels of it all. Um,
Mhm.
there definitely was probably a meeting where some executive was like, "We should just take his gold suit and make it black," and it's like, "Nah, I like it. I like this design, like completely like just like
A
white
shadow
eyes,
being,
a
yeah.
shadow being with white small eyes is so." Going back, little details, all important.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then, so Yelena goes into the room, and it's the scene we also saw earlier in the movie of she was forced to lure like a classmate in to be shot. Um, we
Mhm.
see that again, and she realizes, and we the audience realize, is basically everyone that gets sucked into the void kind of is going to different rooms of trauma. Um, Again, going back on my little details, there's a room she walks into where it's her, um, her and her classmates at the academy, and she's like being tested with other girls, like how to assemble like a weapon faster. Um,
Mhm.
and she's the fastest, and so she gets to stand in the front of the class, and then we see that the teacher whips the girl's hands that didn't do it fast. But what gets that scene really well for me is that when the Yelena that's in the room watching with us, the audience, knows what's going to happen, of course. Um, and right as the teacher is about to whip the hands of the girls, she goes in front of her younger self and like hugs her, and it's like, no, 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 it's okay, almost like a you did nothing wrong kind of deal.
Mhm.
Again, just a really nice note. As much as she is now in this like void, um, I don't know. There's such like a protection of like I don't know. Maybe it's her slowly understanding like you didn't do anything wrong. You were sucked into this, and it's just such. Even just in terms of just cinema in general, just the image of your older self kind of protecting your younger self, is such like a heart wrenching but important kind of image.
Yeah.
Um, we eventually get to the fact that she finds Bob, who's in um, who's in one of his rooms, one of his nicest rooms, he says, this kind of attic thing, and we get the hint that like his dad was super super abusive, and we also know earlier that like he was a very bad drug addict, and that's how he got into the trial to kind of become this serenity thing too, and so his life is super like down as well, I guess, to put it lightly. Um, but something great that someone pointed out about the scene is when they're both on the floor and talking. Every time Bob looks at Yelena, you could see the room get brighter. Anytime he's not looking at her in the scene, the room gets darker. Almost like it's you have when you're by yourself and you have to. It's important to find connection, right? Uh, like connection and purpose in this world. And so, yeah, little details like that 100% made the movie for me. What do you think about like these rooms and eventually the Thunderbolts kind of all coming together to fight their way out of these rooms and all that jazz?
Oh yes, it's the best part of the movie for sure. And
Yeah.
for me, I think number one, I think it's an apt comparison to say that it very much feels like it takes visual notes and cues and music cues from everything everywhere all at once.
Mm-hmm.
that is something that several people have pinpointed that I think is 100% accurate. It very much, like, if you say A24 Marvel movie, this is what you see. Like, is something like this, which I think is fascinating. Also, some of the humor that comes within this last set piece is actually very germane to what's going on, and it works. It's not just like a let's break the fourth wall and wink at the audience. Like, I love the line where like
The
they all meet
chicken.
up as like a team, and then Bucky's like, "Oh yeah, well I haven't had a traumatic past, so I was completely fine going through that."
Yeah.
Like stuff like that is
Oh, yeah.
actually good, you know?
Yeah, I was thinking of the scene where they're going through Bob's rooms all together as a team, and one section is like this wild chicken with a sign
Yeah,
that they're all fighting, and Bucky's like, "I'm getting really sick of this chicken, Bob," and he's like, "I was on meth," you know.
yeah.
So it's stuff like that that was really really funny. Shout out to John Walker for punching the a-hole dad to like shut the heck up and just knocking him to the ground as they're exiting out of the room.
Oh
Um,
yeah, that was awesome.
yeah,
Which
I
also
was
does feel like a wrap up for his character because he's also kind of the abusive dad, and he's fighting his past self.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, I 100% think you don't when the ending of your movie, in terms of I'm imagining this like pitching it to Marvel executives, when the ending like resolve of your movie is your entire team giving a member a hug. That I don't think that happens in a pre everything everywhere all at once world. I
yes,
think everything ever all at once, because of the making of that movie, allows Thunderbolts to end this way. To
totally.
end with everyone fighting to kind of give Bob a hug and be like, "You are here. You are not gonna go into the void because we are not gonna let you, and you are special, and we all really love you." You know that kind. I just love the shot. I love the shot that
It's
everyone
so good.
comes and runs to hug Bob. You know. Yeah.
It's so good, and it's and even like this the set piece of him being in his room as he's listening to his parents fight, and that being the thing that Elena like breaks through to him to is it's a quiet, understated moment with human connection within the third act of a Marvel movie. Like we saved movies.
Yes.
Like that's
Oh
the
my
thing where
gosh.
I was like, this is so refreshing because I'm telling you, what happens with me usually with a Marvel movie is the first two thirds of it. I'm like, this is fun, this is entertaining, I like the characters, and then the third act, I completely check out until the end because I'm like, cool. There's a lot of CGI things fighting in my face right now, and they're trying to like stop the bomb in a certain amount of time, and of course they're going to because all these characters are contractually obligated to be in the next one. All right, cool. Wake me up when it ends. Like that's where I've been. That's a big issue I have with Shang-Chi. Huge issue I have with that movie is I think the third act just fundamentally doesn't work because there's no tension in it whatsoever. It's just like, all right, let's get through this. All right, let's just see our way out. But the same with like the Black Widow movie, Iron Man 3. There's some other ones where it's just like you built up really interesting characters and you have them leave the movie the exact same way they were just because you had them go through this third act that doesn't matter, that doesn't contribute to anything. The idea that this movie's third act is about confronting the emotional bond between these characters and getting someone to feel better instead of just punching a hole through the wall is so refreshing and nice. And I'm like, this is exactly where Marvel needs to be heading. Please, more of this. That's
Yeah.
why I'm like, please see this movie, let it do well, because this is exactly how this franchise is going to survive is if they continue to do stuff like this. To be honest with you, I have high hopes that Fantastic Four will do a similar thing. I really do.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh my
it
gosh.
feels like they actually have a movie on their hands there. So that's, you know,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think Fantastic Four will actually get like will be the movie that gets like Oscar nominations as well, just in terms of like text and production. I
yeah.
even think it could get like projection design, just the whole '60s look. But that's an episode for later in the
Well,
summer.
it is. It is like
Yeah.
legitimately like the way that movie looks and sounds. Like we talk about like a lot of the Marvel movies looking like they're shot in a soundstage in Georgia because they are, but like that movie looks like there's legitimate set pieces and I told I told my dad, I was like, the trailer has music in it that has motifs in it, it has recurring themes that are
I
memorable.
I love that score so
It's so nice.
much. Yeah,
Giacchino.
Michael Giacchino, you are amazing. I love you.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah. I mean, do you remember in 2009 when he released the Up score and the Star Trek score in the same summer? Like two of the best
Minds of
film scores within the
Geniuses
last.
are too hard to comprehend sometimes.
Yeah, I think those are two like the best film scores within the last like 10 to 20 years, and they both came out within weeks of each other. It's crazy.
No, yeah, it's super special at D23 getting to see a panel with him like 5 rows in front of me and him being like, y'all want to hear like the Fantastic Four score I've been working on? We're all like, heck yeah. And
Oh, please.
yeah, there's always such a special moment for just an expo, like just a room just going silent, all listening to this beautiful piece of score. Like I don't know, it's so fascinating that happening. I'm glad they did that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, um, everyone survives. Then what's really interesting is Marvel's been teasing with this movie is Thunderbolts with an asterisk, and we're like, okay, what's going on? And Feige being like, we can't let you know what that means until you watch the entire movie. And it turns out they are the new Avengers.
Mm,
And that's actually kind of the title of the movie.
yeah.
Um, which I think is super interesting. And again, it kind of sets up what we're looking forward to in Doomsday, because I think that's going to be the one downside of Fantastic Four is that's going to be the last movie before Doomsday. So I don't know if they've been like pressured with like setting up Doctor Doom and all that. I hope not. Maybe Doomsday will be the setup for the next Avengers after that. Anyway, um, but yeah, it's interesting because I know it's supposed to be like the people in the world being like, "What the heck?" These guys Avengers, what's going on? But we've come to know them as an audience of people that are struggling to reconcile with their past, and they want to be good, they want to be something, and for them to kind of be members of be Avengers, with quotation marks, I guess. Um, I think is a really interesting and it's a nice ending for them. And I'm excited to see more of them. They're all confirmed for Doomsday, so there'll be a good part. Yeah.
Yeah. I love, 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 love on an artistic level them not calling this movie the new Avengers and them calling it Thunderbolts with an asterisk and then that being the reveal. I think
Mm-hmm.
that is an idea that would normally get studio noted to death. Like they'd be like, absolutely not, we're not doing that. But there's a part of me that also goes, shoot, this movie probably would have made more money if they called it the new Avengers.
I think that's why
Just
they revealed
realistically.
it's the new Avengers for the second weekend because they're like,
Yeah. Yeah.
shoot, okay.
Because I think if they had marketed it as like the new Avengers movie, like I really do think that it would have made more money. But as an artistic exercise, that is such a cool choice.
Yeah.
Like I love that reveal. Like it's so fun. I was
Yeah.
giddy. I had the biggest grin on my face. I was like, good for you guys. You're actually doing something that was daring, artistically, Marvel. Awesome. Like cool. All right.
Yeah. I mean,
You guys are back.
I had a smile on my face just like remembering the movie. I would like to see it again, to be honest. I'm
Yeah.
like,
And like I told you guys, a lot of the Marvel movies are one and dones for me. Even the ones that I like, like even something I really liked, like Spider-Man: No Way Home. Only saw that movie once. Really enjoyed it. Even Avengers Endgame, I've only seen once. Really enjoyed it. I will watch this movie again, and maybe even a couple more times. And I don't have many Marvel movies I can say that about. Like the Guardians movies, I've all seen several times because they're my favorites.
yes.
I've seen Black Panther a few times. I think it's great. We love Ryan
Yeah.
Coogler. Um, Captain America: The First Avenger is a personal favorite of mine, so I've seen that one a few times. Trying to think of even I love the Eternals more than most people, but I only saw it
Yes.
once. Like,
Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm with
um,
you there.
yeah,
I do think
I
there's a
went through a
world where
Ragnarok phase. I watched Thor Ragnarok quite a bit, but
nice.
I'm sorry, I
Love
didn't mean
Eternal. I was
to.
just gonna say I love Eternals. I think if that was more of a mini series, I wonder if that would have been recepted more. so it could take time to kind of be the epic that I think Chloe Zhao really wanted it to be.
Yeah,
But I
like
think as it is, I think it's a very very good, and I think it's gonna go under appreciated. Yeah, really
yeah,
good journals as well.
I think it's a good movie. I think it has its inherent flaws as a movie, but I think it's incredibly the ways that that movie like captures and discusses predestination, the role of nature and God within our lives, how small we are, like
Yeah.
it's just like it's a cool forward thinking Marvel movie that did not get the appreciation it deserved. Like I think when Zhao was making it, she said that she was very much inspired by the scale and the themes of like Tree of Life and Interstellar, and I think that totally reads in that movie. I
Hmm.
don't think that's just something she said out loud. Like I think that totally reads in the movie, but it's just it's an incredibly weird movie, and it
Yeah.
doesn't feel like any of the other Marvel movies. So it's definitely an outlier, you know. But the fact that like it was like a 47 on Rotten Tomatoes is like ridiculous. Like
Oh, 100%.
yeah, like
Yeah.
it's actually a very good movie.
Hmm.
Especially compared to like I'm sorry, like something like a Shang-Chi that seems relatively unambitious, but
Hmm.
that's just me.
Yeah.
But
So that was the Thunderbolts.
good movie.
Yes.
Strongly recommend it. I actually like so far this year. I think it's my number four of the year. At this point, which is cool. Um, I think Florence Pugh is my favorite actress performance of the year so far.
Yeah. I did forget to say. I think there is a parallel world where A24 took We Live in Time seriously and could have campaigned Florence Pugh and could have gotten some buzz.
Yeah, I
But
don't know what happened to that movie. It was good, and it just kind of
I think it made some good money at the box office too, but it also kind of came and went.
did a
But
lot
it's
of
good.
people see it. Didn't it like hit a million on Letterbox or something? Or
I
am I
think
wrong?
you know what? I think it did pretty. Why I say I think it did pretty good at the box office because I do live in a smaller town. It usually doesn't get any like A24 movies unless it's like horror. But it got We Live in Time like a couple weeks after it officially opened. I'm like, okay, I think that's a sign that it's doing well. Then if my hometown theater got this, so maybe it got some people, but it just wasn't as huge. I don't know,
Yeah,
but
it
yeah,
has 843K, so it's close to a million. Like a lot of people saw that movie, so
mm-hmm,
yeah. But yeah, and that was Thunderbolts.
mm,
Definitely see this movie in theaters if you haven't yet. If you're kind of like skeptical about it being Marvel or whatever, go in with an open mind. I think you'll really enjoy it.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah, a lot to appreciate with this one. So,
Mm.
any final thoughts?
Just I think the MCU is slowly turning a corner. Like I mentioned before, this was their first project that they've said they've like stopped with their feet on the ground, took a deep breath, and like focused on making a quality movie. So I think they are definitely re-strategizing. I've heard Feige is making it because the big complaint is, oh, it feels like homework. For you have to watch the TV show to make sense of why this person's here, yada yada. And I think they're slowly trying to figure out a way to make it not be like that. Um, so I think within the next couple of years, we might get back to an original Marvel that we've kind of grown to love.
Yeah,
And I think that starts here with the Thunderbolts, especially when it's like exploration of mental health in the superhero genre. And I think it's something that'll be very interesting. It's an interesting experience to start this summer. Highly recommend.
absolutely. And thanks, guys, so much for watching. We'll have another one soon. I think the next one might be the studio.
Studio. Phil
Yeah.
Collins there.
Oh,
Um, that one has been something that's been buzzed about. I'm excited to do that next week for sure.
yeah. Because we'll get the final episode, and well, we might have a few people on that one. So
I was gonna say, yeah, we'll tease a few people might be joining us for that one because that's something a lot of our friend group has been watching for sure.
yeah. And see you guys next time.
All right, bye. Enjoy your movie watching.